All right, how's everyone? Good?
Well, thank you.
Excellent. I'll just put that over here. Okay, we're going to do health first, and then education, and then we'll take other questions. So, good morning, Queensland, and it's wonderful to be down here today, and we're going to be looking at a brand new school, so part of our government's investment in education, and also with schools going back next week. It's great to join the Minister for Education as well as Linus and Charisse as the local members for this wonderful new primary school, Everleigh, right here in a rapidly growing area down here at Greenbank. So can I start by doing the COVID update? So in encouraging news, we have 7,588 new cases, including 3,712 rats. Tragically, though, once again, I have to express my condolences to the families who've lost loved ones. There have been 10 people who have lost their lives. The Chief Health Officer and the Health Officer might go into a bit more detail, but you know, eight out of these tragedies were in aged care homes, so I think they'll talk a little bit more about that. Our hospitals are around 868, but that's including public and private, so the Chief Health Officer will go into that. And 13,915 tests in the past 24 hours. So in our vaccine coverage, we have 92%, at least one dose, so well done, Queensland. That's fantastic to see that we've hit that 92% first dose. We still want to lift it up a little bit more. In lots of parts of our state too, we're up to 95%, so that's great. And double dose, 89.56, so still struggling to get that final 90% double dose. Boosters, good news, 1.416 million Queenslanders have received their boosters, that's 53.6%, but please go and get your booster. 5 to 11-year-olds, 33.89% have received one dose. We've got another 54,000 booked in, but you know, school's going back next week, and if there are any parents out there that need their children to get vaccinated, please think about it, because it gives the children that added protection. So I'll hand over to the Chief Health Officer and then the Health Minister.
Thank you very much, Premier. Sadly, we have 10 deaths to report today. That's 10 people who died having had a COVID test around the time of their death. This includes 2 people in their 70s, 4 in their 80s, and 4 in their 90s. Of these, 2 were unvaccinated, 8 had received 2 doses of vaccine, and none had received boosters. Now, of these 10, 8 of these were in aged or had come from aged care facilities. We've recorded 107 deaths among aged care residents since this wave began after the 13th of December. That's 107 deaths out of the 202 that we have recorded since the beginning of the Omicron wave in mid-December. Again, our thoughts are very much with their friends and family. In terms of the hospital system, in our public system we have 801 people in hospital being treated for COVID-19. That is up a little bit from yesterday, from when it was 744. I'm not unduly concerned about that. I think it's part of the cyclical phenomenon that occurs in hospitals on the 7-day period, and really we need to be looking at the 7-day period, and it will be more telling what we see towards the end of the week in terms of whether we're continuing to see the downward trend, which we still predict. That figure of 801 includes 50 people in intensive care, 23 of whom are ventilated. We are getting some data fed to us from private hospitals. So the information that we have from private hospitals is that yesterday there were 67 patients in private hospitals with a positive COVID test. So that means they were either being treated for COVID or had been found as an incidental finding, and therefore they had to be isolated. So that's 67 patients. They reported that there were 77 in the previous 24 hours. So it does look like that's coming down as well. I'll hand over to the Health Minister. Thank you.
Can I also pass on my condolences in relation to the 10 people who have passed away that we're reporting on today, and the fact that 8 of those are from aged care residents. It is concerning. We know they're the most vulnerable. That's why we've been saying all along that the priority for boosters should be in aged care residents. Of the 107 deaths we've had in aged care residents since the start of the pandemic, only 10 of these people have been boosted, and I'm concerned that 20 were not vaccinated at all. And I am writing to the Commonwealth today about a number of issues in aged care that I'm concerned about, including what is the accurate rate of boosters of aged care residents. We know that the Commonwealth reports that currently 100% of all facilities have been visited for vaccinations, but we don't know how many have been visited for boosters, and most importantly, how many residents overall have received their booster compared to the total aged care population. And we believe this data should be available. I'm hearing from people who say they're begging managers of aged care facilities to bring people in to vaccinate their loved ones for boosters. And that, sadly, that's coming after, or at the same time as they start getting COVID positive cases spreading throughout the facilities. I'm also writing to the Commonwealth about their plans around workforce shortages, PPE and rapid antigen tests in aged care. We will continue to work cooperatively with the Commonwealth, but when they stand up and announce that they're giving 2 one-off payments of $400, up to $400, not even an absolute $400, but up to $400, conveniently now and in May, leading up to the federal election, for aged care staff, I think it's a slap in the face to staff, to these facilities, and to all the families and loved ones out there with people in aged care facilities. Because what we need is the Royal Commission's recommendations implemented, and we need answers to the fact of, despite the Commonwealth saying, we've got a plan, we're managing these outbreaks, they are writing to me and to the Queensland Government as recently as the 19th of January, asking us to use our contracts with private hospitals to find staff and private hospital beds for aged care residents where the need arises. Now, this should be their responsibility, but they keep asking us to use our resources to do this work for them. And also, in the last 7 days, there has been 26 separate requests for emergency assistance to Queensland Health from the Commonwealth to supply residential aged care facilities with PPE and rapid antigen tests. We have provided 788,000 pieces of PPE since the start of 2022, just since the start of this year. 788,000 pieces of PPE to residential aged care facilities, and it's the Commonwealth ringing us, asking us to provide this. And although they'll eventually reimburse us, that stock that is taking away from our hospital and health services, even though they've got a national medical stockpile. So there's a lot of questions to be answered. We know the Commonwealth still haven't committed to the full recommendations around staff to patient ratios and nursing staff. These are serious issues that demand attention and not just one-off payments to hopefully win over voters in the lead up to the election. So I am very concerned with what I'm hearing in aged care. I'm hearing of residents being locked behind doors for days on end. I'm worried about adequate food and staff to provide healthy meals to residents. I'm worried about adequate staff. And I'm very concerned that there are not enough aged care residents out there getting the booster. And I ask families to be asking the facilities that their loved ones are in, what are they doing, when are they getting their boosters?
Minister, I know it's federal, but they haven't given you any data, any detail at all on how many aged care residents have had their booster as a percentage?
No, all we're getting is percentage of the number of the facilities they've visited. And even what they're publishing federally just says the total number of sites visited for vaccinations. There is no separate reporting on boosters for aged care facilities and what the proportion of that is to the total number of residents. And we need to see that, because the one I talked about a few weeks ago, where we were very concerned that we were going to need to step in to support that facility because of the lack of staff and management, that only about 3/4 of the residents had taken up the booster. Why? Is it a consent issue? Are they not telling families? Are they not planning ahead so that families can ensure consent? But that's not good enough to leave potentially, a quarter of all residents vulnerable and at risk, and these numbers speak for themselves. Too many aged care residents are passing away who have not been offered a booster.
You're right to great points about the PPE use, particularly in the last couple of weeks already. Did you receive a response or anything that...
So I've been raising this at health ministers' meetings. My current letter that's going today, it's probably already gone, is in response to a letter I got on the 19th of January from Greg Hunt, asking us to step in to use our contracts with private hospitals to secure staff for them and to secure staffed beds in private hospitals. Now, we'll continue to cooperate and do whatever we can to support the private residential aged care facilities, but I think it's a bit cheeky of the Commonwealth continually standing up and saying that they've got a plan, that they've managed this, when in fact what they're doing behind closed doors is turning to the states and territories and saying, here, can you sort this out for us? When we are doing everything possible to manage the COVID outbreak across our states, including in our hospitals, and the Commonwealth has got to step up.
Speaking of supplies, do you stand by the claims that the federal government was requisitioning supplies of rats when the ACCC today said that it was the suppliers who were choosing to directly give it to the federal government?
Well, I think that's an answer that these suppliers have to provide, because the suppliers, the state can only act on what we're told by suppliers, and the suppliers were providing documentary information to the government that said that the Commonwealth had acquisitioned this supply. So we have to take that on face value, and if that's not accurate, the suppliers need to explain that. But what I do know is, we on any given day are getting less than what we're supposed to be getting as far as arrivals from suppliers. But on this particular issue, the Commonwealth should make sure they're the ones providing PPE and rapid antigen tests to aged care facilities. We are providing gloves, we are providing masks, we are providing gowns, we are providing goggles. We have so much PPE going out to residential aged care just in the first month of 2022. Where's the national medical stockpile here? Why isn't the Commonwealth getting it to these facilities in advance?
But there was a state government who stood up and said that the tests were being taken by the federal government. Should the state government also correct the record?
Look, I haven't seen the ACCC comments today. I'm happy to look at that. Again, I think we acted on what companies were telling us. If that's not accurate, then it's the company should have to explain why they said what they did. But I haven't seen the ACCC's comments, so I'm going to reserve any comments further on that until I do.
Minister, do you have that figure out yesterday in terms of the number of health staff who have quit or been terminated because of the vaccine?
I believe my staff are getting those figures together at the moment from the department because the HHS's.
I just have a question for the Premier while we're talking about COVID.
You got I just got
Yeah, pick up.
No, better.
Then I'll jump back to
Yep.
no,
Dr. Gerard, each day, taking the aged care side out of it, but every day we hear you talking about the deaths, and there always seem to be people aged over 50. Most of them haven't been triple vaxxed or got their booster. Is there any sort of data on how many Queenslanders over the age of 50, 60 are still yet to get that booster shot and who needs to come forward?
There are data. I can provide that for you. There are a significant number still that should come forward. And look, we know that these boosters are critical. We know that these boosters are critical in protecting us from the more severe complications of COVID-19, particularly those people who are older. I think sometimes people don't appreciate that age in and of itself is a risk factor for severe COVID-19, even if you are otherwise healthy. So anyone over the age of 50 is at increased risk of the complications of COVID-19. It has something to do with the way our immune system changes as we pass the age of 40. So we have the data, and we can provide that. But yes, it concerns me that there are still people who are probably otherwise healthy over the age of 50 who have not got their boosters, and particularly those that have comorbidities. That concerns me even more. Particularly seeing we know how effective they are in preventing complications, hospitalisation, intensive care admission and death.
Dr. Gerard, what's your advice to parents who have immunocompromised children who are attending school next week?
I think that should be individualised. It really depends on the nature of the immunocompromise. There are various levels of immunocompromise. Obviously, children should be vaccinated. That's the most important thing. But I think it would depend on the individual child.
Obviously, yesterday you spoke about, and we saw the trends are going down, the numbers are going in the right direction.
Yep.
They have gone up a bit
Yep.
slightly, but they still trending overall down.
Yeah, I think it's probably better to look at a 7-day rolling average. We're just presenting every day, and we know that there's a weekend phenomenon in hospitals that your maximum discharges are on a Friday and then they slow down on a Saturday and Sunday, and that's the data we're now receiving. I think we will see as the week progresses definitely whether they're continuing to fall. We're not yet seeing falls in admissions in hospital inpatient numbers in North Brisbane, in much of Sunshine Coast, in much of Brisbane. We're expecting that in the next 7 days. Remembering that the discharges from hospital follow on from the probable peak of the transmission. So the peak of transmission may well have occurred already in southeast Queensland. We're seeing increased reports of positive tests in Townsville, which had been relatively lightly touched until now, so it's quite possible that the Townsville numbers will increase in the coming days. It's possible into hospitalisations. Also, numbers in Toowoomba seem to have gone up a bit in the last few days as well. But yeah, so over the next week, that's when we still expect the numbers overall to decline in aggregate across Queensland. The exact impact of schools is not clear. Obviously, there'll be some infections among children, but we don't expect many hospitalisations from that. The bigger risk from the healthcare system, from the schools opening, is the parents and the grandparents being infected from a child. That is the bigger risk. So it is critically important that the parents get vaccinated and the grandparents get that booster. Thank you.
I think on Sunday you said next week it's back to school, back to work.
Yes.
Will you be leading by example and asking public servants to come back to 1 William Street next
Yes,
week?
of course. Absolutely. So we want to see people come back in a way that they can contribute to the economy. If the kids are going back to school, it's time for workers to go back to work as well. And we've heard those stories too about, especially in the CBD, that a lot of businesses are struggling at the moment as well, and it all helps the economy. So, they need to come back in a safe fashion. Of course, if they're in that vulnerable category, perhaps they should speak to their supervisors, and I'm quite sure they're doing that, or if they're immunocompromised.
So the vast majority will be coming back next
Yes.
week.
Yes.
And is there anything more the government can do to support packages in terms of those businesses that you just referenced before have been severely impacted?
Yeah, look, we put out a lot of money in terms of support for businesses. I know the Treasurer's looking at that, but New South Wales has experienced longer lockdowns and shutdowns than Queensland has. Look, having said that too, can I urge people to continue to support their local communities? I went to a local takeaway shop last night. They are experiencing a bit of downturn. It is safe if you've got your masks on to go out to restaurants. If you're vaccinated and boosted, there should be no problems at all. But please support your local businesses in your local communities, because just speaking to him last night, he did express to me how he was a bit concerned with the downturn, and I said hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel, but I did say I would give that message to Queenslanders today to, where you can, go and support your local businesses in your local community.
When you said the Treasurer is looking at a support package, what does that mean?
No, he's looking at what's happening in New South Wales, and he's assessing the impact on businesses in Queensland. So he'll have more to say about that later.
There's hospitality businesses, cafes, they're sort of in a pseudo lockdown and have been for the last few months. They are really hurting the market.
Yeah, look, honestly, but we don't have those restrictions, those density restrictions that they've put back in place in other states and other jurisdictions. So look, we're just going through this peak at the moment in Brisbane and parts of the southeast. But there's still no reason why you can't go and support your local businesses and local communities.
Premier Mike Summerall's come out today with new.
Hang on, can we just do some other things first? We'll get. I'm happy to get to that in a moment. So can I just go on to other matters, and then I'm happy to take general questions. All right, we'll just dealt with the COVID. So I might thank the Chief Health Officer and the Health Minister. I think they're off to Logan Hospital. Okay, so I just want to say to Queenslanders today, we're also going to be experiencing a heat wave across our state, so it's really important that you think about staying hydrated. Also, too, checking on elderly neighbours is really important. We do expect to see the peak of use of our energy supplies this evening. So please listen. There may be some messages about asking you not to use your dryers or pool filters during the peak, but that will come out from Energex later on the day. But we are expecting, and it's already hot at the moment. We've just been walking around here, and we do expect this heat wave today and tomorrow. So please think about your family, think about your neighbours, and please try and stay as cool as you possibly can. Okay, so today, as we know, school is going back next week. I can advise that the rapid antigen tests, some of them are starting to leave the Richlands depot at the moment, on their way to some schools across our state. We announced our school back to school plan and our back to work plan, of course, back to school plan on Sunday. But today we're here to preview our investment in education. A Labor government always invests in education, always invests in our health system. But in relation to this brand new primary school here, it's a fast growing area, Everleigh State School. February last year we turned the sod on this school. It's a $75 million investment in 2 stages. It had 200 construction workers. It has been delivered on time within 1 year. This is fantastic. Well done, Minister. And we're going to have, I think, around 200 students walking through that door on Monday. And of course, a lot of you are sitting down in little preppy seats at the moment. Brand new classroom for our prep students too, and what an exciting time it's going to be for them. Our foundation principal is Nicole Wheatley, and this is part of 3 new schools opening in 2022. So we've got this one in Greenbank, we've got a new school opening at Caloundra South, and also a special school at Coomera. So I might get the Education Minister to say a few words, and Linus and Charisse, and then happy to take questions on this, and then we'll go on to other matters. Thanks, Grace.
Thank you, Premier. And it is wonderful to be here at Everleigh State School in the preppy classroom, beautifully air-conditioned, manually ventilated, beautiful windows for flow-through ventilation as well. And it's good to see the journalists sitting in the lovely little comfy seats that the preppies will be enjoying when they arrive next week on the 7th of February. 12 months ago, as the Premier said, we turned the sod on this side and there was nothing here. And we've come today, and a credit to Foundation Principal Nicole Wheatley, Deputy Principal and the teachers. Look at this little classroom all ready to go, and it is fantastic to see these facilities. They really are world class. $75 million investment. 202 children will be walking through the door on Monday of next week in what we've announced to hopefully be a very COVID safe back to school environment. And in speaking with principals and teachers, they're very happy with our common sense approach, particularly the delay of the school year, so we can get facilities right up to date, get our plans in place. And as the Premier said, our rats are well and truly on their way to the schools for the opening of the first week. This is one of 3 schools that we are opening in 2022, 11 schools over the next 23 and 24 school years. So far, 21 new schools have been opened up by the Palaszczuk Labor government, a $1.3 record-breaking billion-dollar investment in new schools in the state, and we are building schools in some of the fastest growing areas of Brisbane and Queensland. Although 202 students are going to be walking through on Monday of next week, this school is anticipated to grow to 1,400, and we've got stage 2 that will be built for 2024, and contracts going out later this year for the delivery of stage 2. Wonderful to see the facilities here, beautiful outdoor areas, administration blocks, resource centres, multi-purpose courts, completely air-conditioned and mechanically ventilated, learning spaces, amenities, canteens, and I'm very excited to see, and the Foundation Principal Nicole has told me, there are 2 snorkels, is what they're called, built into this. It's a new design where there'll be tiered outdoor learning, safe spaces for the children and for the students to be able to go and learn outdoors in these 2 areas of the school that are called snorkels. So it's the first that I've heard of that. Premier, snorkels, and great to be here with Linus, of course, and Cherie. So we're going to investigate these snorkels, but at a time where we have magnificent outdoor learning spaces, and when you walk around the school, there are so many to be able to teach and learn in a COVID-safe environment. I'm looking forward to seeing this new design, and can I congratulate Nicole and her team for a job well done. If all the classrooms look like this little preppy classroom, the students are going to love their new school, their play area outside, and of course the manner in which this has been designed is world class and second to none. We're expecting about 870,000 students to be attending school next week. Remote learning for years 11 and 12 have started yesterday, and I understand they're going very well, and I think there's about 25 children here at this school today that are children of essential and vulnerable children that have attended the school. I think last week the numbers were a bit lower. This week they're about 25. But we're looking forward to back to school, back to work next week. And I thank all the teachers, all the school staff for their excellent preparatory work in getting our schools ready with the delayed start, which has gone over very well. And can I say, very positive feedback in relation to our back to school plan, a common sense approach, one that hopefully will keep our schools open, and one that obviously in working with health and Dr. Gerard and the Public Health Office, if there are outbreaks, we can manage those and ensure that everyone is kept as safe as possible. As a survivor and a person who's just got over COVID, can I please once again say boosters are the thing I think that really assisted us. We were double vaxxed and we were boosted, and it certainly assisted us in getting over it quickly. So if you're not vaccinated, if you're not boosted, please check yourself in, get an appointment, walk in. We've still got hubs at schools right throughout the state. Go in and get vaccinated. It is your best protection. Thank you.
So will there be some threshold or trigger point when the government or the education department does decide to close a school down because of the COVID outbreak?
Yeah, Jack, it's a good question, and we can't have a one-size-fits-all for closing of schools. What we have said is that the measures that we have put in place will hopefully avoid us doing that. It will be a last measure. We will work and always take the health advice, and I'm so proud to be working with the Premier and with a team in caucus where we always take the health advice, and we will work very closely with them. But as I've said, our aim is that we will have that as a last resort, and there isn't any triggers per se. There are large schools, there are small schools, there are schools of 200 that are brand new, there are some going back with over 3,000 students. You can't have a one-size-fits-all, but we will work with health and we will implement the health advice.
How many teachers unvaccinated have been told not to come to work next week?
We have a very small amount. I think the figure that I announced on Sunday was over 98% of our staff are fully vaccinated, and they are in a show cause process at the moment, but we're very well equipped. We've got 5,000 fully vaccinated relief teachers that are on call should we require them, and I know that the principals are working with us on our staff management plan to make sure that students receive the excellent and world-class education that they receive right here in Queensland. That's yet to be determined, but we're going through a process at the moment. I don't want to speculate. We know that those numbers are indeed coming down every day, which is very good news.
Can I just ask you briefly about City Point Christian College? They're banning gay trans kids. Has the government made any proposals for that school, or is there any jurisdiction there?
Yeah, that's a really good question about City Point. Can I say it's unacceptable for myself as a parent of a non-binary child, and it's very distressing.
Have you looked at even making a...
Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
It's actually quite distressing to hear that someone like that would be treated the way that school has said it. I'm sorry. And what I have done, I've spoken to the chair of our non-state school accreditation board. This matter has been referred to them, but I also understand that there have been complaints that have come in to the department from parents and students in relation to this. They will be looking at this issue from the legislation. I understand, I heard the Attorney-General, it's been referred, and I've spoken to Shannon Fentiman about this as well, the Minister, that the Human Rights Commissioner has warned the school that you cannot contract out of your legally binding anti-discrimination laws in this state. Look, in this day and age, to see this happening is actually quite unbelievable, and I don't know what the motivation was to send something like that out on a Friday, just before their students were due to start online learning on the Monday. I'm suspicious about that. I'm not sure what the motivation was in relation to that, but obviously there are laws in this state. They've already been warned. We're referring it to our non-state school accreditation board, and they will be looking at this. And Lynn Foley, the chair of that board, who I spoke to yesterday, is well aware of the issue. I believe there's a meeting on Thursday, and they'll be considering some of the content that they've received from outside complaints in relation to that school. Look, we strive, and the Premier is one of the most powerful leaders in this, for an inclusive, supportive, welcoming school environment. That is what we should be doing. And no student should be denied a world-class education because they're a member of the LGBTIQ+ community, particularly my child.
In terms of that Human Rights Commission, is that a complaint or a referral made by the government, or is that something?
I think they're looking at this, and Scott McDougall, the Human Rights Commissioner, has issued a warning already. People are putting this into all the various areas of government departments, and government departments are using their processes to make sure that they're heard properly and effectively. And as I said, I spoke to the chair just to say, are you aware of this? I've referred it to NASAB, and Lynn Foley was aware of this, and I understand they have a meeting on Thursday.
Is the government making that referral as well?
Yes, definitely. I have already. I think the Attorney-General has already as well. They're well aware of this, which is why Scott McDougall issued the warning.
And also,
Sorry, apart from issuing a warning, what sort of action can the Commission take against the school?
Complaints can be given to the Commission, and then they can handle those complaints. But they're better given to the Attorney-General under those rules. There are anti-discrimination human rights laws in the state that are very strong, and we're very proud of those laws. And obviously the Attorney-General can give more information. Scott McDougall is obviously aware of this issue and has issued the warning.
the latest data we found shows that the school, 47% of its revenue actually comes from federal and state funding. Do you think it's right that a school is able to get public money if it is discriminating against students?
Clearly, if that's found to be the case, no, I don't think that that's right, which is why the matter is being investigated. But that's part of our federal agreement. Non-government schools are funded at 80-20, 80 federal government, 20% state, and it reverses for the state school sector. We fund 80% and they fund 20%. So that's the national framework agreement that's been in for quite some time. And obviously, if there are breaching rules and regulations, then of course NASAB is the right area, and the Human Rights Commission is the right area to determine what action should be taken.
Beyond the school itself, Minister, are you concerned about the broader impact on the community, particularly those young people who are making their way through life, having made their decisions? The mother yesterday said that a 17-year-old gay son who doesn't even attend the school, very upset by all the headlines around it. Given the suicide rate is disproportionately higher in that cohort, are you concerned about the publicity?
Of course I am. Of course I am. You're right, the suicide rate amongst LGBTIQ+ community is higher than the normal community. The mental health and well-being and the welcoming and supportiveness that we want to offer our students is at the top. That's why we're employing psychologists in schools, mental health professionals, GP in schools. It's all about a welcoming and a very safe environment for them. Of course it's concerning, particularly as a mother of someone who identifies as non-binary. And they would be very upset about this too. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier. Well, as a former teacher, it's a tremendously exciting day to be here at Everleigh State School. Just over 11 months ago, we were right here on this ground where it was a pile of mud and rocks and stone, and we've seen an incredible transformation. And we're seeing a world-class school that's so exciting for the kids that are here. I will be joining the Minister to check out those new learning areas. I'd love to be able to be the kind of teacher who could teach in those types of areas or have that breakout for kids that have finished that work. That's going to be an exciting piece of infrastructure for kids. The other thing is I wanted to thank the team. Principal Wheatley is so passionate about this area and about this new school. And we forget that the public servants who are turning up to do this hard work, our teachers and support staff, they're so passionate about what they're doing. And to take this extra challenge at the last minute, they've taken it in their stride and they're excited to go for next week. I also wanted to add, just on COVID in Logan, I really urge everyone to get vaccinated. One of the most fantastic days was the last member of the Power family from my mum, Mary, who's quite a senior, she doesn't talk about her age, who's triple vaccinated, down to last week was a proud moment when my daughter Lucy went to the Logan Entertainment Centre to get her vaccination as an 11-year-old. So she's going to go back to school with at least that first vaccination, and she's excited to keep going with the next one when she gets the date up. But really I urge, as Dr Gerard did, is for anyone over 50 in the Logan community to make sure they've got their booster. It's the best way to protect yourself and to stop you entering hospital or something even worse. So I urge you to do that. I wasn't planning on commenting on this, but those issues that were raised about the children, we need to be supportive of our children, whatever they're going through and whatever they're facing and whatever they see as their identity. I'm really passionate that young children who are doing that get all of the access to education and don't have any extra burdens on them. I know for myself from my own kids that CathEd handled this really well and supportive. So we can do this, and I know the state system is very proud of the fact that we want to make that fantastic and support for kids who are going through these issues and questioning about what their role is with their gender or their sexuality. We're really passionate about that, and I know that every school sector should be doing that because we want to support first and foremost the children that are going through this, their education system. But yeah, I'm really excited. The other one about small businesses, I'll be up at the cafe shop at Greenbank. It's a great local family small business. If you want to come up there and support them, I urge all the journalists to come and get a coffee on the way out. I'll be up there as well to support them, and it'd be fantastic to see you there. It's Gloria Jeans, by the way.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome to Greenbank. I'm particularly pleased to have the Premier and the Education Minister here today. Greenbank is a really fast-growing area, and Everleigh State School, I think, is a fantastic example of the kind of investment that we are making in this region. We've got a lot of young families moving into this area, but we've also got a lot of established families who live on acreage. The fundamental thing is that they all want a quality education for their children, and that's what they'll get here at Everleigh State School. I want to thank Nicole Wheatley, the principal, and her team. They've been fantastic, and we've been working really closely with her for the last 12 months as we establish the school and as we prepare our community for coming back to school. And I know we're all very excited, and the anticipation of in welcoming over 200 young children here early next week. Thank you so much.
All right, happy to take any other questions.
There's serious claims being made. He's obviously been making claims today. Surely there should be an investigation into all of this that he's bringing to light.
Well, they are serious issues, and as I said, I encourage our public servants to be frank and honest and say if they don't think something's right. So there are obligations for employees. Now, he's not an independent statutory authority maker, and he did leave his position some time ago. But under the Code of Conduct, there's an obligation to raise things with your Director General or your Supervisor, but also to, if there are serious allegations of misconduct, the right avenues for those matters to be investigated are the CCC.
Why were there two versions of his 2018-19 annual report?
I don't know about that. Look, I've just heard reports, Jack, about this today.
Don't you want to know why there were two versions of it?
Well, he is not an independent statutory authority maker. He is an employee of the department. So those issues you'll have to address to the relevant department.
So can you explain, does that mean that his report can be interfered with before it's published to the public?
Look, I'm happy for the Director-General to have a look at those matters, but this is the first I've heard about it.
Isn't this part of the problem that he had two roles in a sense? In one way he was reportable to the Director-General, but then he did have an independent statutory role in being the archivist?
My understanding is that the archivist is not an independent statutory authority.
So the government can...
Well,
isn't that the contention?
I'm happy to find out for you. I've only just heard about these allegations. I'm happy to get some more information. I said I'm happy for my Director-General to look into it.
Are you personally alarmed by claims that ministers could tell public servants to alter official reports? And will you take any further action to ask your ministers if any of them have ever done this?
Well, look, as I said, they're serious matters, and there are courses of action that any employee of the public service can take. And, you know, what I'm saying is that I actually, if these were of such concern to him at the time, why were they not made at the time as well? However, you know, I'm more than happy for my Director-General to look into these matters that have been raised. And the serious allegations that he is raising, he would have had an obligation to refer those to the CCC.
Given that the performance of the CCC is under severe scrutiny with this inquiry you announced yesterday, what sort of confidence is that going to give senior public servants to come forward, given the need of Mr Fitzgerald and his colleagues to...
Well, that was a recommendation that was made out of the PCCC committee. That report was given serious consideration by government, as I mentioned yesterday, where government has appointed Tony Fitzgerald and Alan Wilson QC to preside over that inquiry. And they now need to be able to get on with their job. As I said yesterday, Queenslanders need to have confidence that they have a strong, independent watchdog in this state.
But the whole point is, though, the whole point this week has been, the government's been standing up and saying that we have powerful bodies who can investigate things.
Correct.
That's why there isn't a need for an inquiry into allegations about your own government. At the same time, how can you say that to the public they can have confidence in the CCC when there's effectively a royal commission into the CCC and over their failure to act impartially and independently? Surely that screams out there needs to be an actual independent inquiry into these separate allegations.
What allegations?
The ones from Nicola Stefanov, the ones from Mike Summer.
But no, sorry Tim, you haven't been at the last few press conferences. Okay, but okay, well I'll repeat it again. I repeated it yesterday as well. In relation to the Integrity Commissioner, her functions are reviewed under statutory review every around 5 years. Kevin Ewbury completed that report. That report has been given to the Economics and Governance Committee. Submissions closed yesterday. That committee will report to government, and the Integrity Commissioner also made a submission to that committee. That committee will then report to the Parliament, and then government will consider the findings of that report and respond, just like we have responded to the PCCC report. So that matter is actually dealt with.
Isn't it dealt with by Premier?
Sorry?
Because that report didn't look into the allegations that the Public Service Commission went in and raided Dr. Stefanov's office. So
They were allegations, Lydia. You made a statement of fact.
yes, it's not, but don't you
Yeah,
think that
sorry,
there needs
the
to be-
allegations, no, the allegations have been forwarded to the CCC. I've said this, I've repeated this every day this week.
So why are you, can you just explain why you're resisting calls to expand the scope of Mr Fitzgerald?
Because the terms of reference have been finalised and they have been gazetted. And let me just say very clearly that the terms of reference state the Commission should consider any recommended legislative, structural, procedural or organisational changes. It's pretty broad. It's pretty broad there.
If Mr Fitzgerald wants to expand the scope of that inquiry, will you accept that?
I said, I just quoted you one of the terms of reference there. It's very broad.
You just said that in terms of the matters that Mr Summerall raised, that your Director General will look into that. Why would your Director General look into that and not someone independent of government?
Well, that's the appropriate body. She presides over the public service, and he was an employee of the public service. Any of those serious allegations he is raising, he should have forwarded immediately to the CCC.
And you're the Premier. Can you clarify the rules around annual report? So if the State Archivist puts an annual report in with his...
I'll have to have a look at what he said. I have not seen...
You're the Premier and you're being a Minister. Do you not know what the rules are?
I see annual reports, Jack. I look at the annual reports, then they are tabled.
When
Okay.
you say Rachel Hunter's looking into it, what does that mean, looking into it?
Sorry?
When you say Director General is looking into it, what does that mean exactly?
Well, she'll have a look at the comments that were made today.
But specifically, what have you instructed her to do?
Well, she said to me this morning that she's more than happy to look into those allegations that have been raised.
And report back to you, and then are you going to release the report, or what is
Well,
she actually
we'll
doing?
look at. I'll give that due consideration today. But she needs to be able to do that independently from me.
You've
Okay.
got due consideration.
The allegations that have been raised, I have not seen the full summary. I've heard about it, and as I said, they are serious. And some of those matters, at the archivist at the time should have referred to the Triple C.
So just to be clear, your Director General, Rachel Hunter, will look into it. She will report to you. You'll consider it. Then tomorrow, say you'll report back.
It's not going to be happening tomorrow. She will have a look at the allegations that are raised today, and she will do that as the head of the public service in Queensland.
We've often seen politicians refer serious matters or allegations like this straight to the Triple C themselves if they're in the light. Will you not do that yourself?
I haven't. I'll have to have a look at it in careful consideration. I'll give that to the Director General. But can I just say, the individual has the onus of the obligation to refer it to the Triple C in the first instance. That is the obligation of a public service that works in the Queensland government.
Premier, to clarify on that terms of
Yes.
reference that you just quoted, does that mean Mr Fitzgerald will be able to look into allegations of political interference in the public service?
Oh, Tony Fitzgerald and Alan Wilson start work on Monday. They have the terms of reference. It is up to them to conduct their inquiry, but the inquiry came out of the PCCC recommendations, and that is the terms of reference. The terms of reference have now been gazetted, and I encourage you to look at the terms of reference.
And if they wanted to expand that, would
Well,
you
that's a matter for them. Honestly, that is a matter for them.
Is $5 million, though, Premier, enough for a big enough mock-up bucket?
Well, it's up to $5 million, and it's 6 months. So, can we just let them get on with the job? They started on Monday. It is a serious amount of money. I mean, $5 million is a lot of money. This brand new school here is $70 million. Okay, it's taxpayers' money. $5 million is a lot of money.
Within the scope of that terms of reference,
Yes.
would Mr Fitzgerald have the ability to look into individual cases and claims such as Mr Summerall's that were made to the Triple C? Will he be able to look into that? Is that your understanding?
You'd have to look. That I am letting the Commission get on to do with their job. Okay, so the main reason that the Commission was set up was the recommendation from the PCCC PCCC report that was tabled in the Parliament. I am not. That it is wrong for me to comment on what Mr Fitzgerald may or may not do. Let the Commission get on with their job. I fully support the Commission. It is a royal commission. It is a royal commission, and they are checking to ensure that the Triple C is operating in the best interests of Queenslanders.
A couple of years ago, the Brisbane Review.
Two more.
A couple of years ago, the Brisbane Review, which I believe was a report to you, suggested that the budget of the Integrity Commissioner shouldn't fall under the Public Service Commission. Why didn't you take any action on that at the time?
Well, Jack, let me say very clearly that that review has been forwarded to the Economics and Governance Committee, and we are looking forward to seeing their report when it's tabled to Parliament. That is going to be addressed as part of that review.
Have you spoken to Leanne Enoch about what she knew? And
No, I haven't. No, I haven't.
Why not?
She's
Why
your
haven't you
local
spoken
MP.
to her?
We have other local MPs here, but Leanne Enoch.
It's not her electorate. It's not her electorate. She's not. This is not her electorate.
Why haven't you spoken?
Sorry?
Given the seriousness of
Oh, look,
what
honestly.
Summerall suggested. Well, I mean, I'm sure you speak to your ministers regularly. Why haven't you mentioned this to her and asked for her view of how this all played out?
You're entitled to ask her.
Have you asked Victor Brenny about today's allegations from Summerall?
I've only just heard about them as I was travelling here.
Where is Minister de Brenny? We just talked about the power outage earlier. Why
Yeah.
isn't he here today?
Well, he's probably doing important government business. Okay, my ministers are out and about serving the people of this great state.
Sonia, are you not interested in your own minister's view of what happened when you have a former public servant who's made quite a serious implication?
Yeah, and let me respond to that. My understanding is the report that he finalised in 2017 was forwarded to the Triple C, which formed their basis of the inquiry. That inquiry found that there were recommendations made and government implemented their recommendations.
There were two reports, though. There was one that was one with the Director General.
Not my understanding.
Well, Mr Summerall's understanding that there was
Well, I'll have to clarify that.
Will you be talking to your ministers about this? Now you're aware of it. Will you be talking to both ministers about their, or are you going to leave that to the Director General?
Let's let the Director General have a look at these issues. But as I said, serious allegations. Public service know their code of conduct, and they know where to send serious allegations, and that is to the CCC. Okay. Thank you.